Welcome to I Testify Conversation Station. It's your girl, Mal Mal.
I'm Vivian.
And I'm Hannah.
Today's topic is I want to be like you, then better than you. The quote of the day says, "Make covetousness and love of earthly treasures the ruling traits of their character. As long as these traits rule, salvation and grace stand back. Their hateful influence will be exercised to not lead others to heaven," says Satan to his host. By Ellen G. White. Look at his car. Look at her clothing. Look at their house. Him, her, them, everyone. I wish I had what they have. I hate him for his success. I hate her because everyone likes her. I wish everything that they've ever had could come to an end. But I have a plan. I'll get everyone to hate him. I'll get everyone to shun her and destroy them. What started out as envy grew into jealousy and developed into hatred, from discontentment to the gruesome murder of character and prosperity. And so today's topic is, I want to be like you, then I want to be better than you. The conversation will be broken into 3 parts. Number 1, envy and jealousy. Number 2, the devil's snare. And lastly, overcoming. And so today I'm joined by 2 beautiful women. And so the question is, what is envy?
Envy. For me, I think envy is related to something that you don't have. So you have feelings about something you don't have, and maybe you're looking at someone that has what you want.
Mm-hmm. And Hannah, what is envy?
Same thing, just bouncing off Vivian. It's just wanting, again, something that you don't have and kind of feeling ways towards a person or something, right? And kind of like you feel a void. And so it's a desire, basically.
Okay, so it's the desire to have something that you don't have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, and so what's the difference between envy and jealousy?
Jealousy is probably something that, related to something you do have and you don't want it taken from you.
So envy is something you don't have and that you want. Jealousy is something that you do have but don't want it to be taken away from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Hannah.
Yeah, I think it relates more to like kind of relationships, in terms of like you're with somebody or like you have a friendship and then you see someone coming in and try to like jeopardize that. I feel like that's when you get jealous,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're introducing something very, a different perspective of jealousy here is when you have something and something is coming to threaten what you have.
Yes.
And so there's a risk that you may lose what you have.
Exactly.
And so this intimidation factor, like maybe another person threatening your relationship, is okay. So that's great. So can envy grow into jealousy?
I feel like in my opinion, it's kind of 2 different things. I think, because it's like, because it's 2 different feelings related to 2 different situations.
Yeah, I feel like she's right, but like at first it can be that way, and then because you're envious of something, and then maybe you come to obtain what you were envious of, and then once you've already overcome that, you kind of then feel like that jealousy. It's like, okay, now you don't want it taken away.
Okay, so
right?
I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
So envy is something you don't have that you want. Mm-hmm. And in the case that you do obtain it, you become jealous when something threatens it.
Mm-hmm.
But what if you don't obtain it? Then where does your envy go? Because you still want it. So what if you never get to a point of obtaining it? What is that word to describe those feelings?
Well, I guess that'd be jealousy still. I don't know.
It'd be jealousy still. So basically envy and jealousy. Envy can turn into jealousy when you don't obtain.
Okay.
So the root of wanting something that you don't have is envy. And it can turn into jealousy either when you don't obtain it or when you obtain it and something threatens what you have.
Okay.
All right. That's what you said.
She just reiterated.
You just but you worded it differently, so I had to like
Wow.
think about it again. But yeah.
Okay, well, so let's see, what does the Bible say about envy or jealousy? And so Ecclesiastes 4 verse 4, Vivian, what does it tell us?
Yeah. So here it says, "Again I saw that for all toil and every skillful work a man is envied by his neighbor. This also is vanity and grasping for the wind."
And so it says, I saw that all toil and achievements, so all hard work and accomplishments spring from one person's envy of another. So he's saying somebody's hard work and accomplishments can cause you to be envy. And at the end it says, this too is meaningless and a chasing after the wind. Chasing after the wind is like the wind blows. One day it can go from the west, the other day it can go east, north, south. And so chasing after the wind is
Pointless,
meaningless. And also it shows how this person might have an identity issue where you're moved by change. Or you can change, or you change every second because you're moved by someone else's successes. So someone can turn to the left and you turn to the left. And then you see somebody else, they have something and you go towards that direction. So the lack of identity is rooted from envy.
Right? That's crazy you say that, because oftentimes, like, if you think about people that are jealous, it's often people that are like just totally lost, right? That they don't know where they're at, they don't know who they are, right? So I think that's really...
It's dangerous.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah, and when you're like chasing for the wind, you're not grounded in anything. So you're going to go every which way the wind takes you, right? Right.
Wow. And now let's look at John 12, verse 43 is going to tell us why else are we envious or jealous of others?
So it says, "For they love the praise of men more than the praise of God."
They love the praise of men more than the praise of God. So number one, we learned that jealousy is caused from the hard work and accomplishments of others, watching them.
Yeah.
And that's the root. And then it says it's like chasing after the wind. Wherever it blows, you go. Lack of identity and foundation. Now it's telling us that we prefer the praise of men than the praise from God, or the glory of men than the glory of God. Why may that be an issue?
It may be an issue because you don't know where, different people have different ideals and standards. And, it may not be up to God's standard. God has a different plan and purpose for us. And when we lose sight of that, when we don't attain, the potential that He is setting up for us, or the plan that He is setting up for us.
Hannah, what about you?
Yeah, just reiterating what Viv said. Basically, when we try to live up to men's standards, I think it's something that we draw more to just because it's more physical. It's something like we can see, we can feel, often more times than when we get the praise from God, because it's not as direct, right? So I feel like it's easy to fall into. But at the same time, that praise, again, is kind of meaningless because everybody is on their own paths, right? Everybody's going different ways. And again, like Viv said, the praise that they're going for may be to a different standard, right? And they may be praising you for the wrong reasons, and then you get trapped in that, right? And praise feels good,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
So it can be dangerous.
You said a lot of points
way.
there. Viv said the standard of men versus the standard of God, and so we end up living to the expectations of people than of God. Can you give me an examples of like young adults, young people? What are some things that the world, or maybe someone direct, personal, may have for you that you're like, that's give me some examples of some pressures and influences we may get, or some scenarios that may pressure us.
For sure. I know for one that I see a lot on, like, for example, like social media and TikTok. A lot that comes up on my feed is like how to earn money. Like there's like these young kids, like 20-something-year-olds, are like, I make over $6,000 a month just by managing like Instagram accounts. So like a lot of kids our age are trying to find easy ways to make a lot of money, and that's kind of like the goal for a lot of them is like, how can I make a lot of money and get rich
quick and
rich quick? Yeah.
Wow. Any other example?
Well, there's like a lot of basic things that you could possibly like see in high school, right? Just like popularity, status, all that,
right?
Basic. But even just in day to day, as you grow up, like that never escapes, right? In every scenario that you're in, there's always people that are going to be trying to strive for that, and then in the way that you can kind of be influenced by that and be like, I kind of want a taste of that. And like Viv was saying, like those influencers that we see so much, and we're just bombarded with all like these people in high places. You see like 17-year-olds living on their own, having a nice condo, and you're like,
buying their own
I'm
house,
in my 20s, I still live at home, right? But it's all a process, right? And for everybody's different, and we can't compare ourselves to that, and we can't lead ourselves to like feel envious or jealous of those, because that's where we kind of
So it takes us to a place where we have timelines in our lives because we see what other people are doing, and it's like, they have a car, I need to get a car now. They have kids, I need to have a kid. I need to get married now. And it's like, no, this may not be, like you said, it may not be God's will for my life. And you brought up a good point where the praise of men may not be good. The praise of men, I heard there's a statement that says flattery kills. And so sometimes the enemy uses people as agents to flatter us on points. It may seem good to have a business, but if that's not God's will for you and you have a bunch of people flattering you, you have fallen to the snares of the enemy. And so instead of listening to God's voice, you want people to constantly tell you and feed you with the honor and the applause. And you need the minute you need validation from men over the word and over listening to God's voice, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah, for sure.
And you said something. You said the glory of men can be seen instantly, but the glory of God isn't so direct.
Yeah.
And that's what usually kills us, because we think of praise as applause. We think of praise as you're doing well, words of affirmation. But praise from God is blessings.
Exactly.
And if we fail to realize that, then we will never be blessed, and we'll always want to obtain, and never actually get anything, right?
Yeah, I mean, in the example that I shared, like, it's not necessarily bad to make a lot of money, but for kids that are young and still, generally don't have an idea of who they are yet, when you like root your identity in money, we know that in the Bible it says that money is the root of all evil, right?
Yes.
And once you start to lose, your identity in Christ and placing it in earthly things, it can go away quick like that, and then you lose. So then, what am I like? What is my value then if I lose these things?
Wow. And that's a good point. That leads us into the second part of our conversation where we're talking about the devil's snare. She said, our identity is not rooted in our possessions and accomplishments. And so the question is, what can lead us, or where can jealousy lead us, or what can jealousy lead us to do?
I would say sometimes very questionable things. Right? It can lead us down like wrong paths, just like being spiteful to others, do others wrong, kind of, again, like threaten other people's positions. It can be a lot of things, that jealousy leads us to do, or even like tear apart relationships. It's pretty bad. And you don't live like contently. You're always bothered by something. It's like an itch that you have. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like something that's always like picking at you, and like you just can't like stop it, right? And you just never feel like it's enough, right?
You mentioned destroying relationships.
Yeah.
How much do we do that? Like, we don't even realize what jealousy can do, because you end up being like, it's like a numbing. It's like a medication that numbs you, paralyzes you, and you don't even realize what you're doing anymore. You get to a point where we assassinate characters. You get to a point where you can talk about someone, not because they did anything to you, not because they're an enemy of any sort, but they're better. You think in your eyes that they're above you, and that gets you to a place where you're like, if I can't have what they have and be better than them, I'll make everyone else hate them and shun them. And by doing that, it will drag them to feel like they are nothing. And the Bible equates that to murder. There's no difference between you and the mass murderer, because there's a lot of us who are literally murderers walking around killing people's characters just to drag them from prosperity to poverty. Right? And so what other things can jealousy and envy do to us, or lead us to do?
I think jealousy and envy can lead us to kind of lose sight of our true purpose.
It's like going back to like chasing the wind, right? You veer from the path that you were originally on, or you're supposed to be on, right? Instead, you're jealous of other people and you're trying to go for what they have, and that's not what you're meant to have, right? So, and then you end up straying from that path.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, when you're jealous and envious, you're kind of like, you know, you're thinking of, when is it gonna be my turn, right, to have these things, you know? I was actually watching this podcast, and they were kind of talking about this and like kind of looking at other people's success and comparing it to your own like situation and experience. And I like what the speaker said. She said, who you are when it is not your turn is more important than who you will be when it is your turn. And that spoke to me, right?
Yes.
You know, why can't we just applaud people that, you know, when it is their turn, you know, be happy for them.
Yes.
Yeah, because our time, like God's timing is not our time, and everyone will have their own success at their own point in life.
Exactly.
Yeah, that says a lot about like your character, right?
And that's what's important here. When you lack character, everything that you do will be fruits of evil, and you'll be discontent. So discontentment isn't just something that you choose to live in. You don't just wake up and are discontent. You don't just wake up and are unhappy. You choose to do it by choosing not to develop your character. And that's the root of everything. You can't be happy for someone when you don't have a character. And I was listening to a preacher, and he said, the Christian's job is to be consistent in Christ-like character. And when you lack consistency, you're nothing but a fake Christian.
Exactly.
And when you do that, you destroy more than you elevate. Right? And so that's the issue with envy. The deeper issue is character. You don't have a Christ-like character, and so you're not happy with what you have. You want what others have, and not just that. How many people do you know who have what they have and wish the best for their friends, even your friends, as close as your friends, but as soon as your friend passes you, you're like, no, this is not it. This can't be it. You can't even be my friend no more. You are doing way too well, you know?
Or it's like, okay, what am I going to do next now? Like,
and you feel it sometimes, like, genuinely, like we can all testify that we felt it before, where like you have a dream and somebody else's dream comes to fruition before yours. And you're like, what about me? And that what about me turns into not you. It's supposed to be me. And it's real.
Yeah, it's actually crazy. We were doing a study last night. We were looking into Matthew and some of like the miracles that Jesus had performed. And it was, you know, the one where the woman was bleeding for like 12 years.
Yes.
Right. And she just like touched Jesus's robe and she was healed. And at the same time, the young girl's dad came came to Jesus. It's like, come with me. Like I need my daughter to be saved. Right. And it's like, he came like out to meet Jesus. Like he came from far away, and he's like, I need you to come with me. And at the same time, like it's written in different timelines, like depending on like the version that you read.
Yes.
But in one version, it says that first, like the man came, like the father came, and asked like, okay, like, can you come with me? And then the woman reached out and immediately got healed. So looking at it from like the father's perspective, it's like you have your daughter that's dying, or they think she was dead. And then you witness like another person being healed and getting blessed before you do. Right? That's really hard to witness.
Wow.
It's like seeing others be blessed before you. Right? I think that's just kind of like something that that is really hard for us to accept sometimes. But at the end of the day, they both got their blessings. Right? Like that's the bigger picture. Like there's enough of God to go around.
Hello, somebody.
Right? You know?
Imagine.
So
she couldn't get healed 6 years before because Jesus wasn't there yet. Imagine she had to wait 12 years because Jesus would be there.
And on time.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love how you brought up that story, because that is the monument of what it looks like to be happy for someone. But not just that, Christ actually healed the woman. And while he's healing the woman and talking to her, there's another Pharisee that comes to Jairus and says, why are you even bothering the master? Because your daughter is dead. And Christ turns around while he's still dealing with the woman who had touched the hem of his garment and says to Jairus, only believe. Because Christ is reminding him, don't worry about what he's putting in your ear. That's a spawn of Satan. Don't be discouraged by the wait, but just believe. And that's what Christ is wanting us to understand, that envy is usually happens in the time of waiting. But don't envy. Don't look at somebody's blessing as a testimony that if he can do it for them, he can do it for me.
Yeah.
And so that's really powerful. And so let us look at James 4 verse 2. James 4 verse 2. And it's going to tell us, why are we jealous people?
Okay. You lust and do not have. You murder and covet and cannot obtain. You fight and war, yet you do not have because you do not ask.
There it is. He says, you lust, you kill, you want, but you don't obtain. Then he says, after that, you then fight and war. And it's simple. You did all of that, destroying yourself and destroying people. Why? Because you failed to ask.
Yeah.
That's it. So you want that PhD. You want that woman. You want that business. You want that money. But you didn't ask God.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get it, but you can't obtain it. But it's simple. You didn't have faith enough to come
Right.
to the hand that moves the world.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. It's a lack of faith for sure.
Can you touch on that, the lack of faith?
Yeah, a lack of faith because you feel you don't have enough faith to believe that God will, make happen what you want to happen. But sometimes it's not what we want, but what God wants. And eventually, ultimately, what God wants is higher and better than what we have imagined for ourselves.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes that lack of faith just kind of comes from us thinking that we're not important enough, that we're not like big enough, like we're so minuscule, like we're just one person in this big world, like God isn't going to care about what I really want, so I guess I got to do it and go out for it myself. And it's also just kind of like who we surround ourselves with. Sometimes if we don't have those people that are supportive, sometimes not everybody has those parents that are with them, or family members or friends that are always pushing them, and they feel like they're in this world alone. So it can be really hard to approach kind of an invisible God, right, and think that he's really going to do anything for us. So I feel like that can be that root of that lack of faith sometimes. But we have so many great testimonies here, right?
Yes.
And be like, why not, right? So, yeah.
And you touched on a lack of support. But I'd like to say, sometimes even our parents will do the best that they can to set us up. Most of our parents. And it still doesn't work.
Yeah.
Or they have dreams and aspirations for us and we never get there.
Yeah.
The point is the support around, even your friends. They could support you by praising you, by reminding you of how powerful you are. And you can never get to the top. You may never get to the top. The point is the support that you have around you shouldn't just be a support that can provide materialistic things and words of affirmation, but a support that can pray for you. You want a support that is strong enough that they can, when they speak, they're making the hand that literally moves the world move on your life.
Yeah.
Because we're too busy trying to find the friends that can invest in us. Oh, I need a friend that can invest in me and invest with me. That is not what you need. Because your investments will fail.
Yes.
But God will never fail.
Amen.
And that's what we're reminded of, So you want people around you who have faith.
Yes.
People who have spiritual discernment. People who can pray for you more than talk with you.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so let's move on to our second chapter, our second verse, which is Psalm 109, verse 3. What leads us, or what does jealousy lead us to do? What does the Bible say?
All right. It says, they compassed me about also with words of hatred and fought against me without a cause.
There you go. And so David's saying they surrounded me with hatred. They didn't like me. They had words for me that weren't good. All because of what? Because they were jealous. And so jealousy can quickly develop into hatred. You're going to end up hating people. And when you have hate, you have driven out the Spirit of God, right? And so what can hate do to you, Vivian?
Hate, not a very good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you hate someone, you are not enacting in the character of Christ, because Christ's character is to love people regardless of who they are, what they have. And when we start to hate them, we don't look like Christ. And then if we call ourselves Christians, then people will be confused because we don't represent the character of Christ or of love.
Exactly.
And that's what God calls us to do, is to love everyone.
Yeah.
God is calling us to love everyone. Hannah.
Yeah, I feel like hate doesn't win on either end. Like, you hate someone and that person is going to feel distraught, right? You're going to break them. You're going to tear them down. And you, like, from that point of view, like, hating, that's just going to eat you up inside. That's just going to tear you apart. That's going to fill you with anger, rage, right? You're never going to be content. So there's really no winning with hate, right, on either end. So it just brings down both parties. Even though you think, okay, I'm going to put this person down and I'll uplift myself, at the end of the day, that's not the case.
And don't forget that destroying someone else, you will pay for it. Whether it's by ripping apart their character to people, making up lies, because you will do whatever it takes when you hate. Whether it's, I don't know, actually doing something to them physically, you will pay for what you do. You reap what you sow. You know? And so that brings us to the last section, overcoming. How do we overcome jealousy? And so we'll read Galatians 6 verses 4. Galatians 6 verse 4 tells us how we can overcome jealousy.
But let each one examine his own work, and then he will have rejoicing in himself alone and not in another.
So it says, let us examine our own work, and then we will rejoice. And so, Hannah, if you could just expand on the verse.
I think this also comes back to identity, right? First, being comfortable with who you are, like knowing your path doesn't have to be so clear, right? Because it's never going to be so clear cut, like we know where we're going, like we let God guide, but just a sense of purpose, just a sense of just getting yourself out there, doing some work, you know, and you'll find fulfillment even through the little things, right? So I feel like it's about us taking action, and slowly, surely, we'll find in those small works, it will lead us to that greater purpose that God has filled out for us, and in turn, we'll be satisfied with what we've done versus, you know, again, chasing other people and trying to be in the position that other people are at.
Contentment is key. Hannah is saying, she's saying you got to know your purpose.
Exactly.
And you got to live by faith, because you will not, you don't know where you're going, but you're trusting whoever is commanding and leading you, which is Christ, that wherever you're going is going to be nothing but happiness and peace, right? And so let's turn to our second scripture, Psalm 37, verse 7.
Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not thyself because of him who prospereth in his way, because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass.
That's deep. Vivian, what is it saying?
So it's basically saying that we have to wait on God, and we have to wait for him to act. And while in this waiting, we have to try to not to look at what other people have, or what, you know, what's happening in their lives, because that's not what's supposed to happen for us. We have our own plan, our own purpose that God is preparing for us.
And the last part there says, it talks about the wickedness of men. There's another element of jealousy where we're jealous not of those who are doing good, but those who obtain materialistic possessions and money in illegal ways, in ways that sin against God. Because a lot of people say, so why are the wicked rich, and why are people who are good poor? You're so busy focused on what wicked people are doing, you will lose salvation. You know, so he's saying, be patient, trust in me. I will lift you up. He said, humble yourself before me and I will lift you up. Don't worry about the wicked devices of men. Do what is right and walk in the Lord, right? And so that's the reminder today. And lastly, in Proverbs 23, verse 26, it says, my son, give me thine heart, and let thine eyes observe my ways. And so today, the instruction that God has for us when dealing with jealousy and dealing with envy and hatred and revenge and assassination of character and not wanting someone to prosper, which is practically murder, God is saying, I want your heart. That is all that I want. And after I have your heart, I want you to observe me. He says, watch me do it. And so the call today is simply this. Instead of worrying about what your neighbor has, instead of worrying about what everyone else is doing, instead of killing yourself and killing your mind, and like Hannah said, not having an identity, having purpose issue, focus on you. He says, watch yourself and stop watching others. He says, just give me your heart, give me your life, surrender all that you have to me. Surrender your relationship, surrender your family life, Surrender your job, surrender your careers, surrender your dreams to me, surrender your businesses to me. When you surrender all, because I don't want 99%, I want 100%. When you surrender it all to me, then watch me do what I do in your life. And if you humble yourself to me, he promises, I will lift you up. And so that is what we're talking about today. Don't be envious. Don't be jealous. Don't look at what he has, what they have, what she has. Look at what you have. Be content. And then look up and watch what God can do for you. And so this is I Testify Conversation Station. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Available on all podcast platforms.